Benny, it's great to see you today.
Nice to see you, Jason.
Benny, you've been here for a while. What first brought you to Ukraine and what attracts you the most here?
I was first brought to Ukraine for a project called Slava Lacha. It was a folk music project that was mixing Appalachian folk music, which is what I've studied for a long time, and Slavic music, both Ukrainian and Belarusian. And we actually had, there's an album, and we had this whole experience. But this connected me to Ukraine before the full-scale invasion, and then when that happened, my heart was exploding for people because I was actually watching my friends make Molotov cocktails. They were sending me videos of it and everything, and I got super into volunteering and fundraising, and we raised actually over $100,000 as part of the From Ohio with Love campaign, and we were bringing tourniquets and medical supplies over, and just being a part of the war effort and being a part of something so much bigger than ourselves, than myself. It really pulled me into Ukraine, but at the same time, the folk music was always a big part of it too. Singing these songs, these traditional songs in the street, and like realizing how ancient they were and how powerful they were for people, especially in this time of war, and how it was kind of a resistance to Russia to sing these songs in and of themselves. Really compelling for me personally. So both of these things were very much a reason why I came and settled in Ukraine.
But during the time of war, there's more than just music. What other aspects of the culture of Ukraine do you see during this period?
So, yeah, I already mentioned mobilization, which is the Ukrainian term for draft, essentially the draft. And I mean, just because of my age and like who I hang out with here, I have a lot of friends who are draft age. And recently there's been a big increase in people being drafted, just because the war is dragging on, obviously, and they need the people. So something I experienced recently is called a provody, and this is a Ukrainian tradition, essentially to celebrate a soldier and say goodbye to him as he like goes to the army. And it's actually a very old tradition, and there are some songs specifically for provody. And you always have a big feast, and you like gather the whole village if you're in a village. And we had a big provody for my friend Clem recently, and because he's a big part of the folk community in Kyiv, it was like a very special event, and all these people who actually know these old songs were there, and it got a lot of attention, like in the media, because it was so beautiful, like people making Instagram videos and TikTok videos of it, and it kind of jolted this conversation of why aren't we doing this for our soldiers? Like, this is very important. It makes them feel loved and supported. And so there's this important conversation now around like, this is a real use for folk culture that we should bring back into the culture. So that's been very interesting.
And are you still in touch with soldiers once you go to the front? Have you been there?
Yeah, I've been to the front 5 times. Never to like the 0-0 point where you're getting shot at, but frequently within range of artillery, at least some drone activity, and I have heard some of that stuff. And I've always gone there for a mixture of reasons, both to bring supplies like tourniquets and other medical supplies, which I was helping fundraise for, especially in the first year of the war, but always also to play music and bring culture and just bring friendship and support. And that's been a big part of my way of volunteering in Ukraine, because most people don't want to go there. And for whatever reason, I am not really too scared to go there. I mean, there's tons of people living there. There's kids who live very close by. There's families. It's very debatable whether they should, but they do, because they don't want to move. They don't want to lose their only property, their only worldly possessions. So I have been to this area mostly in the Kramatorsk direction, just because those are like the soldiers I know and have connections with. But for example, like when new like friends of mine who get mobilized, it's always a new relationship figuring out how to like stay in touch with them because they're kind of coming into this new reality, new world, and you want them to know they're supported.
So when you perform for soldiers, would you say that they must already know all these traditional songs, these folk songs, don't they?
A lot of these songs are very old, and most of the soldiers actually have never heard of them, which is it makes it very powerful for them to hear them for the first time from an American who's just obsessed with their culture. um, and I've spent a lot of time trying to get my accent as close as possible and to understand the language as much as I can, which is an ongoing struggle. But yeah, it's become a thing where I can really sing these songs for people, usually in tandem with other Ukrainians, because they're usually multi-voice songs. But honestly, I mean, I was recently on tour in Kharkiv Oblast. This was mostly playing for civilians, actually, in parts of the region that had been occupied by Russians, and then the Ukrainian army took it back. And these people lived through very hard times under the Russian occupation. And we were specifically performing in towns like this, like Izyum, Levkivka, Balaklia, and other places like this. And I mean, the tears streaming down people's faces and the amount of gratitude they had for us afterwards and to me afterwards. I mean, it's really not why I do it, but it makes me feel like, okay, this is really needed. This is something I can do that's pretty unique to my skill set. So I feel very motivated to keep doing it.
Knowing a lot of traditional Ukrainian songs, what do you see in them that you think might have been offended, let's say, the Tsar and tried to outlaw Ukrainian language and culture?
For example, one of my favorites right now, it's called Avje Rokів 200, which means, and already for 200 years. And it's this kind of exasperated song about, we have already been fighting for independence from Russia for over 200 years, but this is a very old song. Like, we don't know exactly when it was written because it's just literally come up out of old grannies and gramps singing this actually in a small village in Nadnepryanshina in central Ukraine, sort of in the Odessa region, not quite that far, but and this song is super powerful lyrics. It specifically has political content about Bogdan Khmelnytsky, who is a Ukrainian general hetman who had a very big military disaster that really led to the cutting up of Ukraine by the Russian Empire, the Polish kings. And so this song has some like poignant political content, and actually it was illegal during the Soviet period. You couldn't sing the song or you'd be imprisoned. And so we sing it really loud right now, and we love this song. But that's one example of something that would be outlawed and that Russian imperialism is trying to target and destroy.
See